What is going on today, guys? My name's Alex. Welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to talk about how to break in your brand new 5.7 or 6.4 liter Hemi engine from the dealer, how to do it properly, the do's and the don'ts, and then lastly I'm going to show you the first mod I did on this 2022 Power Wagon, and a little bit of rust protection for those who are interested. This is my brand new 2022 Dodge Ram 2500 Power Wagon. I got about 1,000 kilometers on it, and I'm gonna show you how I broke my engine in, or my brand new Hemi, and the first time I dropped the hammer, foot to the floor, because it was nothing but smiles. This thing is sneaky fast. Now, unfortunately, we have some super crappy weather today, so this is not going to be the most cinematic video, but I think the information is still very important and very critical if you guys have a new Dodge Ram pickup truck with a Hemi in it. First and foremost, there is a break-in procedure. I know there is kind of some speculation on whether this is actually the case, and obviously over the years, modern machining techniques have become much more efficient and much more precise. However, with a new engine, there's still going to be components that need to mesh within each other, and there is going to be a break-in period for that to happen. So, yes, there is a break-in procedure. Now, this break-in procedure comes right off the MOPAR website. This comes right from the MOPAR engineers. So, if you doubt me, I'll drop that link down below and you guys can check it out for yourself. But that's what we're going to be going over today. So, phase one of your engine break-in is from 0 to 100 miles. MOPAR recommends that there is very little idle time for a reason which I'll get into in a bit here. They recommend that you don't rev the engine over 3,500 RPM. And they recommend that there is no harsh acceleration or braking, because obviously if there's harsh braking, you're going to have a pretty harsh downshift. And they recommend you stay below 55 miles per hour. Phase two of your engine break-in is going to be from 100 miles to 300 miles. Basically kind of the same, limit your idle time. However, you can now rev your engine up to 5,000 RPM, and you can go up to 70 miles an hour. They also recommend, obviously, not to accelerate too quickly or to brake very quickly. Phase three of your engine break-in is from 300 to 500 miles. Now, this is where Chrysler recommends you use full RPM range. Basically, put the frickin' pedal to the floor. We are going to drop the hammer on this thing for the very first time. Now, before you guys do completely mash the throttle on a new engine, I would always make sure that your oil temperature and your transmission temperature, if you have the gauge, are at the spec. I would always make sure those are up to temperature before you really mash the throttle. Here we go, all the way down. Woo! Jesus, this thing is sneaky fast for a 7,000 pound truck. Wow. Here we go. Woo! Oh my. I mean, it's not like it's lightning fast, but it certainly is not slow. It's faster than I thought it would be. Boys, here we go, full throttle from a standstill. Let's do this. Well, woo! Okay, so I didn't go full throttle right away because I just don't want to peel the tires out. But once we got into like second gear there, I was to the floor. Whoa. It's a little quick. It's a little quick, I have to say. Kind of impressive there. It puts a smile on your face. That's all you need to know. Although they do recommend not using wide open throttle for too long of a period. Obviously the engine is still relatively new, but the reason why they recommend this is because they really want you to seat those piston rings in the cylinder, as well as other components. But most importantly, those piston rings. And you want to get this engine nice and hot and really seat those piston rings to really make a perfect sealing piston in the cylinder, or as best sealing as you can get. Now, I know when our shop did in-frames, basically rebuilding big diesel engines, we recommended after a short break-in period that the driver runs that brand new diesel engine very hard. You want to get that engine nice and hot and really mesh all those moving components together while the engine is at a very nice temperature. So that is probably why MOPAR recommends using full throttle. The other reason is because if you are just cruising at a constant speed while the engine is braking in, the components are going to mesh together only while cruising at that certain RPM range. So if you're using full RPM range, full throttle, the engine is going to break in not only in just certain RPM range, but ideally in all the RPM ranges, giving you a much better running engine through its lifetime. Now, phase 4 is from 500 miles to 1500 miles. MOPAR just recommends basically not to race the engine, and obviously I own a pickup truck, so that's not a problem, but these Hemis do come out in the Chargers and the Challengers, I think. Could be wrong. And people may want to take those to the racetracks, but they recommend not taking them to the racetrack until after 1500 miles. And then obviously after 1500 miles, I guess MOPAR deems that the engine is ready to be held at wide open throttle for long periods of time without having any major damage. Now, going back to what I said in the first phase, 0 miles to 100 mile engine break-in. MOPAR recommends very little idle time, if any. Now, the reason behind that is because when you're idling, let's say at 650 RPM, the oil supply and oil pressure is going to be lower than if you are, let's say, over 1000 RPM. And when your engine is breaking in and very new, let's say, you're going to want a lot of oil to your components so that they can mesh together properly with adequate lubrication, because the last thing you want is those components meshing with not enough oil present and causing either heat or damage. And the other reason why you don't want idle is because when your engine's idling, there's going to be a lot less splash lubrication up into the cylinder walls at those low RPMs. And when you're braking an engine, you want a lot of lubrication on those cylinder walls, because those new piston rings don't fit perfectly in mesh with those cylinder walls, and there is going to be some wear to make that perfect sealing surface. And you want adequate lubrication on those cylinder walls to make sure that there is not excessive wear when those piston rings are breaking into the cylinder. And then lastly, specifically with these Hemis, aka Hemi Tick, your valve train, your cam, your lifters are usually at the upper end of the engine, which means they're the furthest from the oil pump. Once again, at lower RPMs, you're not going to be pumping as much oil, and oil is going to be lastly displaced at the top of the engine. And again, specific with these engine guys, you do not want a lack of lubrication up there when the engine is breaking in. All those components all kind of meshing with each other, you want a lot of oil. So that's why MOPAR recommends that these engines do not get idled a lot when they are brand new and breaking in. Obviously, once you're past like 500 miles, it doesn't really matter as much. Obviously, idling an engine in general is not the best idea, but when you are breaking in a brand new engine, it is not a good idea at all. You really want to make sure the engine is running above 1000 RPM when you can. And so what's kind of interesting is I wonder how many like salesmen at the dealer actually know about that, because I know most brand new vehicles don't actually come with 0 miles on them or 0 kilometers. My truck here had about 100 kilometers on it. So I'm curious how many salesmen know about that, because I can guarantee some of these engines have been idling a lot on the lot when they probably shouldn't have. And that goes for acceleration as well. Like, how many people test drive your truck or my truck before I actually bought it and left the lot and just put the hammer down to see how fast it could go? So it's interesting. I mean, obviously the engine braking is just, guidelines, but you never know what's been done to these engines before you get into them. Now, if you guys didn't follow this procedure when you broke in your brand new Hemis, it's really not the end of the world. I'm sure many people have not followed these guidelines right to spec, and they have perfectly fine running Hemis. All right, guys, I hope you found that interesting. Like I said, that is exactly how I broke in my engine. Seems to be running beautifully, and hopefully it keeps running beautifully. As always, guys, if you like the frickin' video, don't forget to leave that thumbs up. And if you like cool stuff like this, don't forget to subscribe. We got a lot planned with this Power Wagon. But enough of me. We'll see you guys in the next frickin' video.